Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first webinar of the spring series for NAGT. NAGT webinar series is your one-stop shop for increasing our community's capacity in Earth education. Webinars in our series feature novel and innovative work in Earth education research and pedagogy, new teaching materials, and the classroom and professional experiences of people just like you. The webinar series is free and open to the public, and we encourage you to invite your colleagues to attend and join the discussions. Before we get started, please take a moment to review the Zoom controls on the screen. We ask that you leave your microphones muted and your cameras off. If you have questions and comments along the way, we encourage you to use the chat to enter those into the chat box. Webinar presenters and staff will be monitoring the chat, and you can also use the reactions tab to give nonverbal feedback. As a reminder, the NAGT webinar participants are expected to abide by the NAGT Code of Conduct, which applies in all venues, events, and forums associated with NAGT. I just dropped the link to the full Code of Conduct policy into the chat where you can read all the details. On the screen is a link to the webinar series homepage where you can find the webinar schedule, the archive of past events, and information on our sponsoring projects and programs. You can find slides, resources, and recordings of every webinar through the webinar archives. Today's webinar is entitled Exploring Models for Engaging Community College Students in Field Research, a discussion of benefits and challenges. Presenters are Kari O'Connell and Nancy Staus from the STEM Research Center at Oregon State University, and Amanda Robin from the Community College Field Biology Alliance. And with that, I will turn it over to them for the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. We're going to start with just a super quick introduction of three of us presenters. It's mainly Amanda. She did most of the work. And then we'll get started with Amanda's presentation and hopefully some discussion after. So as John said, I'm Kari O'Connell, and I work at the STEM Research Center at Oregon State University. And a lot of my interest and focus in my work is around undergraduate field education. And I am PI of UFERN, the Undergraduate Field Experiences Research Network. And I'll put the website in at some point during the presentation. That's kind of where some of these ideas emerged. And it's a program funded through NSF, a project focused on fostering effective undergraduate field learning experiences. And a lot of interest emerged in engaging community college students specifically in field experiences. And we've had a community college interest group for a while, and that led to another kind of community conversation like this one, and even a paper that I believe is shared on the NAGT website led by Amanda. So there's just been a lot of interest in conversation. I would say more in the arena of like the biological field stations. That's many of the people who are involved in our network. And we're really interested in connecting with geoscience arena and people hopefully on this call who are interested in the same topic around engaging community college students. So we're excited to share some ideas we have, some work that Amanda's been doing. And also at the end of the presentation here in a conversation and discussion, what are some needs and interests and challenges around engaging community college students in field experiences as we go forward, thinking on this topic, potentially writing some grants that people might be interested in being involved in. So that's kind of the big picture of where this presentation came from. And Nancy and Amanda, please feel free to add in anything that I might have missed. So Nancy, do you want to go next? You're next on my screen, and then maybe Amanda could take it away.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm Nancy Staus, and I'm also a senior researcher at the STEM Research Center at Oregon State University. And my interest in this is that I used to be a field biologist myself, and then I became an educator at a community college where I taught undergraduate biology courses. And just through that experience, sometimes we were able to get outside, not really in a field environment, but just on the campus of the community college and do some biology data collection type things, and you could just see how that affected engagement of students, even students who were non-biology majors. It just really seemed to make a difference. And the research on undergraduate field experiences really bears that out, that those are really important in helping students develop a sense of identity as a scientist. And so that's my interest, and I'm hoping to be working with Kari and Amanda on in the future developing some grant proposals around these ideas. And we're hoping this webinar will kind of give us a starting point, some good ideas from you all about the needs and challenges that you have that could help inform that process. And with that, I will hand it over to Amanda.
Thank you. I'm Amanda Robin. I'm going to start sharing my screen. I am the director of the Community College Field Biology Alliance, which I'm going to talk to you about what that is today. I'm also finishing my dissertation in ecology and evolutionary biology at UCLA. And I started working with Kari and Nancy, talking about ways that we can look more closely at engaging community college students in field research opportunities, and that's what brought us here today. I also organize the UFERN Community College Interest Group, so if you're interested in joining those meetings, there'll be a place for you to be able to sign up for that here today. So our objectives of this webinar overall is to share some models for engaging community college students that I've used over the past 4 years as just a way of generating conversation and maybe allowing people to walk away with some pros and cons of different engagement models. Secondly, we really want to learn about what you've been doing and also the needs and challenges that you may have faced or that you might know are being faced by CC faculty. And lastly, we'd love to identify potential partners for future research proposals. Okay, so to do that, we're going to start out with just kind of thinking about what brought us all here. And I want to start off with a chat waterfall. So I'm going to set this timer, and if you can just take a few seconds and type out in the chat, I'll mute it, what brought you here to this webinar today, and don't hit send until our timer goes off. Okay, so finishing up your thought, and you can go ahead and submit your chat response. Awesome. I'm seeing a lot of folks who are already practitioners in community colleges. It's really great. I can't wait to hear about what you've been doing. Folks starting right before the pandemic. So we're going to talk about how we ran our program in the pandemic. So I'd really love to hear about what that was like for you as well. Awesome. And I'm seeing people starting new projects. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I hope it looks like what brought you here today is very aligned with what we're talking about, but feel free to jump in with questions at any time, or if there's something that we don't get to discuss today, you can email us. We're happy to talk about that as well. Okay, oops. All right, so most folks in this room seem like they've been working with community colleges, so we won't belabor the point of why it's important to include CC students, but I do think I like to start out with kind of some context of why the Community College Field Biology Alliance started, and kind of framing it and thinking about how, almost half of all of our undergraduates in the United States are enrolled in community college, and so just how big of a student population that is. And in comparison to other types of institutions, community college colleges serve higher percentages of first-generation students, low-income students, students working over 30 hours a week, over the age of 24. So folks who may, even when they transfer, not be able to take part in traditional field courses or field internships. And aside from all of those things, we also have a retention problem. So community college students leave STEM at higher rates than four-year institutions. So for example, over a 7-year study period, 69% of community college students that entered as STEM majors switched. And so we know that undergraduate field experiences, so that could be courses or internships, are associated with a variety of positive outcomes like increased persistence, higher graduation rates, narrowed achievement gaps, and gains in self-efficacy and belonging in STEM. And so when we think about those three different factors of look how many of our undergrads are in community colleges, look at these groups that often don't have the opportunity to take advantage of field courses, as well as look at all the positive things that come from field experiences. All of that together really points to making sure that we're very intentional about getting community college students out into the field. And so with that, I'm going to introduce what the Community College Field Biology Alliance has been doing. So we're an education organization based in Los Angeles, and our mission is to introduce community college students to field research through intensive training and hands-on experience, and also to support their transfer to four-year institutions. And so we do that by fostering a strong community of mentorship, whether that be counselors or former transfer students and graduate students. And so we're going to talk about different models of engagement that we've used we're going on our 5th year now, but they all really come back to this program framework, which is a 9-month research internship that typically runs from April to December, where cohorts of 8 to 15 community college student interns enter the program at once. And every intern is set up with 2 mentors, a graduate student mentor and an undergraduate transfer student mentor. So this is someone who was a community college student who has transferred. And the teams work together to develop an original research project with a field science component. For us, that's been field biology, so ecology or animal behavior based. And then the research teams move together through the program in a larger community, which we'll talk about soon. We recruit students directly through advertisement. So you can take a look at our website and see our 2023 flyer a lot more clearly there. But basically, we send out this flyer to community college faculty, community college STEM counselors, and STEM centers, and have them distribute to the students directly. We also have a few closer partnerships with some community colleges close to the UCLA campus. And so they help advertise on their websites as well. And our application requirements is really just that they are a full-time community college student with interest in research. So we really prioritize students with no previous experience or who may not be ready for larger programs where they have to compete nationally. We try and get folks at the very beginning and provide them with a foot in the door, a really leverageable experience. Okay, so that's the program as a whole. And the next kind of thing that we're going to describe so we've been running for 5 years, and over that time, we have tried out 4 different models of engagement, or really 3, and we have our 4th planned. So each of these models really works within this framework, 9 months, cohorts of interns working in these research teams. So our first engagement model is our 100% in-person model. So we have our monthly meetings, and on the first Saturday of every month, students would meet on the UCLA campus to meet with their research team in person, as well as in a large group for skill building workshops and professional development. And some positive things here is like a strong sense of community from the first day of the program. students enjoy being on campus and we can utilize campus resources like the libraries. But from a programming perspective, there's some added difficulty here, like coordinating logistics and funding to get students to the campus and to feed them, and also as a program to find meeting spaces. And it really limited the number of community colleges we could recruit from because they'd have to be able to travel monthly to campus. For our fieldwork component of this model, we had a 10-day field excursion to a remote site where students needed to pick up, to basically collect all of the data for their projects that they had been planning during those monthly development meetings. And so it was a great experience, a lot of supportive community and collaborative data collecting. But what we learned here is, of course, when you go to the field to collect data, oftentimes your methods or your experiment isn't working, or your study subjects don't show up. And so having the model where students were spending all year designing a project that would be enacted in these particular 10 days in the summer added to a lot of stress and pressure and a lot of on-the-fly changes to research. And lastly, the research symposium portion of this model, we went to the regional undergraduate conference in Southern California, and this worked out really well. Students got to share their science with larger community of scholars, and they got to see other undergraduate work. So it was really great. There was some financial and logistical challenges to navigate transportation and also the review process for the abstracts. So in our second engagement model, things were 100% remote. So in 2020, it was unexpected switch to remote right before our program started in April. In 2021, we were very intentional about doing things remotely. And so we're still using that 9-month framework here. And what we had are monthly Saturday meetings on Zoom. Some pros to this is it could accommodate more students for community colleges from all over, right? Because we're on Zoom. We're also able to bring in a larger group of more diverse guest speakers and workshop facilitators because we didn't have to get people onto campus. And so it's actually a really awesome thing. And it cut down on a lot of the programming logistic time and allowed us to develop some really cool workshops. But we did have to be more intentional about developing that community piece. And I'm happy to talk with folks who are interested in learning more about how we developed that community intentionally through social media and Slack pages. The fieldwork in this model is done over several months and in the interns community. So they were designing projects in those Saturday development meetings that they were able to then enact in their neighborhood. And so this was kind of cool because the students had really personal ties to the research that they did and really highlighted this idea of ecology not just existing in far off remote places. But, some downsides is it wasn't collaborative, and it was also, we had to navigate some hurdles of mailing research equipment to the interns and kind of working with them and helping them learn that process of collecting data without being there with them. In this model, our research symposium was actually hosted by our organization. It was online. And this was really cool because it allowed the symposium to be more focused on our students. And we were able to get a keynote that was focused on community college with a community college focus. And they were all able to share their research. But at the same time, they really kind of missed out on that larger community of scholars piece. And the logistics were kind of the same on a programming workload basis, like planning the symposium and getting students to the other conference. It kind of was the same workload, just different tasks. So this is some really, really preliminary data with our 2021 cohort. And so what we're looking at here is basically their survey responses for the scientific integration survey. So we're seeing that students are showing improvement in their scientific self-efficacy, so their belief that they can do things that scientists do, and their scientific identity, so their perception of self-identifying as a scientist. There was also some improvement in science community values, but they really came in feeling like the values of the scientific community reflected their values already. We are seeing that just working remotely in this internship is showing improvement. Our next model is what we did in 2022, and this was field work only. This was very different, and it was as we were transitioning back from being 100% on Zoom and figuring out what we were going to do next. Instead of running at 9 months, we took on a partner. We've been working with Neon, and so basically, instead of doing the monthly meetings, we had 2 orientations. So this was less time commitment for the students and programmers, but students came to our field excursion not having set up projects, so they weren't doing their individual projects, and not having really developed community prior to the trip. And really the largest missing piece that we noticed here is this limited understanding of just research and where it fits in the larger context of why are you collecting this data? What do scientists use the data that you're collecting? What do they use it for? How will they present it? How do you frame this experience that you're having on this field excursion on your transfer application or to future PI? That piece was missing without those monthly meetings and that professional development. With that being said, we still had an amazing fieldwork opportunity. So we spent 7 days at a Neon field site assisting their scientists collecting data. And the really big benefit of this was students, because they weren't collecting data for their own project, they were able to be exposed to a wider range of field methods because they got to change what protocols they were doing every day. And they were also contributing to Neon's open source data, which everyone was really excited and felt like they were contributing to something larger. For the research symposium, so because the students didn't do independent projects here, we didn't put together a symposium. So really we felt like just having this fieldwork component, we left this year feeling like it wasn't enough. So students left without the sense of ownership over a project or the experience of getting to work on something beginning to end and share it with their peers. And so we're still seeing that there are these increases in feeling like they're belonging to a community of scientists, feeling like they identify as scientists. We're still seeing those outcomes with only the fieldwork component being in person. But with that said, we felt like there was a lot missing. And so that brings us to our 4th model, which is what we are going to be going with in 2023. And this is a hybrid model where we're hoping to kind of take the things that we liked the best about the 100% remote, 100% in person, and try and merge them together. And so our monthly meetings, we're going to go back for a 9-month model. But the Saturday meetings will be on Zoom. And so this will allow us to establish that community earlier, do professional development, have students develop original research projects, but we're going to have them working in groups. And then basically allowing us to reinstitute all of our awesome guest speakers and workshops. And then our fieldwork component of this will go back to the 7-day excursion to the Neon sites. And so they'll still get to be exposed to all of those different protocols and methods because they won't be collecting data for their own project during that excursion. And then for the research symposium, we're going to go back to our undergraduate regional conference because we feel like it's more impactful when students get to share their work with a larger community and see other undergraduate work being done. So that's our plan for that one. And so those are our 4 models, and programming in every one of these engagement models is really focused on this idea of integrating community college students into the scientific community. So aiming at increasing that self-efficacy, identity, and feeling of value alignment with the scientific community. Our goal was always to provide opportunities to experience the scientific process from beginning to end. So increasing their sense of ownership over a project, humanizing scientists, and allowing for career exploration. And this is something that we saw might have begin to decrease in that third model where we were only doing field work and none of the other supporting activities. And lastly, one of our goals is really to provide them with a leverageable experience that can aid them in their ability to qualify for future research or be a competitive transfer application. So this is just one example of how difficult it is to transfer as a biology major. So you really need to have that extra component, an extra piece. And so we're hoping that what they do, the work that they do with us, can go towards that as well. Okay, so those were our models of engagement. And before we move on to our discussion, where I want to leave with today is just some discussion questions or some things that Kari and Nancy and I are thinking about, which is this idea of engagement intensity ranging. So you can have things with low time and resource requirements, like maintaining a database of field researchers who want to work with CC students, or high time and resource requirements like these multi-month internships. And so thinking about, well, how does the model of engagement impact student outcomes? And also thinking about who's involved in creating these field experiences for community college students, and how can we build more partnerships between external internships like the CCFBA and field courses or field internship opportunities that are being provided by CC faculty. Where's the overlap where more partnerships can form? And so that's another discussion question that we really want to talk about today, is what are the needs and challenges of CC faculty around providing these experiences, and how can we join forces? So this is where I am going to end. And I'm happy to take questions before we move into our discussion. Feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand.
It looked like there was a question about if we were involved in the Aaron network. Let's see, Wendy. That I'm trying to remember what that stands for. I can put that in the chat too, just so people know what we're talking about. Ecological something. It's terrible. Something network. It's another research coordination network. And
yeah, it's Wendy, and I can't think of what the acronym is at the moment, but okay. I know it is targeted for undergraduate, and that there's a larger project going on that Aaron uses Neon data, etc. So,
yes, and they're partnering with Neon too. I know I'm in because that's also a research coordination network grant, or it started that way, the same way that UFERN did. I have been in touch with them, and we have a few overlap in participants, but that's kind of it. I think I've been watching them to see how they keeping themselves sustained. So in that way, I'm learning from them, but that's my involvement. And I'll look up what that is too, to put it in the chat, just another maybe resource for people.
Sigrid, I see your comment about being surprised about hard to transfer because of GPA and not lost interest. So I just want to make sure. So my intention there is to say that it's really competitive to transfer in as a STEM major. And so with, at least for the University of California, who uses this, what do they call it? Like well-rounded, or the model where they also take in experience outside of grades, having this kind of research to show not only am I interested in biology, I've also completed research projects. I've engaged with a community of scholars already. Being able to talk about that in their application helps make them more competitive to transfer. Not that GPA is the only limiting, or is a limiting factor.
Sorry about that. Looks like we gave lots of information about Aaron. You want to make sure everyone knew what it was. I wasn't keeping up with the chat. Are there other questions for Amanda?
Hi, Amanda. This is Anjali.
Hi.
Hi. First, I want to congratulate you on this great piece of work, and this is very close to my heart. I am very interested in doing undergraduate research with two-year students because that's what I have been doing for the past 3 years on a soft money, but the money ran out. Nonetheless, um, just extending on to the points that we were discussing about the transfer rates. So I agree that there could be, it's a competitive world, and given the variables that the application process involved, there could be other factors accounting for it. And obviously this is not the platform, and necessarily the scope of your work was not associated with that, correct? So there could be various other reasons in impacting that. So just a comment on the side, but I do understand that how you addressed it in your response. So nonetheless, I'm very excited to be here, and I just want to hear more thoughts on how you are extending this work forward, or other opportunities in this network.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, we are extending by running our 2023 program. So we're going to be accepting a new round of 15 interns, and we're hoping by 2024 we'll be able to run a couple of cohorts at one time.
Great, thank you.
I have a couple questions for you, Amanda. One is, are you only accepting students from the Los Angeles area at this point? Is that your focus still?
At this point, for this next cohort, yes, because we are planning on doing in-person field excursion. The idea would be potentially to run a 100% remote version of this, where you could potentially recruit from multiple states and have a multi-state cohort. So right now, yes, future, the goal is to be able to be wider than that.
Okay. And it looks like there's more questions coming in, Amanda. I can read them to you, or if it's easier for you just
I
to
can
look at
see it.
them.
So I'm seeing a question from Roman. Will the hybrid model still include graduate and undergraduate mentors? That is a really good question. So the answer for 2023 is yes. We are still going to have a mentorship model. It won't be a one-on-one mentorship plan because we are doing group projects. So we're thinking about having 5 groups of 3, and each student group would have a mentor, a graduate and undergraduate mentor associated with it. So we're getting a little bit looser with that, but we are planning on still having a mentorship piece there. I'm seeing a second question from Patrick. Do you see difficulty with students lacking necessary background at the 2-year college level? So we see our program as the starter gate to this work. So we don't look at their previous coursework. So we have a lot of students coming in at all different varying levels. And from a programming perspective, it is a little bit difficult sometimes to make sure that you're getting everybody up to speed and you're able to include everyone. But with that being said, we've never had an experience where we were not able to work with a student in order to develop the understanding that they needed to complete their science. Sometimes it means sending more YouTube videos and background information about particular concepts. Sometimes that means walking through some extra papers or doing some extra math. But we've never had a situation where we couldn't get folks all together to be able to do their project. If that makes sense.
Hey, Amanda, I'm just jumping in before the next question. I'm wondering if we want to have turn off your slides so we can see people's faces.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to forget about that.
I'm seeing a question about recruitment. Did you want to jump on your mic?
Yeah, hi. Maybe I missed it and you already addressed it. Like when you started this program, how were you recruiting students? Were you focusing on if they are associates in science, associates in biology, or not many two-year colleges offer programs in ecological sciences? Like my college, it offers program in agriculture sciences or agriculture's in plant sciences for transfer. And we don't have any ecology courses in the offering. But that being said, if they have taken botany or a biology, intro to biology, they might be able to handle it. And also along the same lines, do you offer any stipends for the students that could incentivize? So
No, these are great questions. So what we did basically is we have over the past several years developed a large and growing database of faculty and counselors and STEM center contacts at community colleges in the greater LA area. And how that originally started was just going onto the campus websites and really looking through what departments. So STEM centers are great places filled with STEM counselors and all kinds of contacts. But outside of that, we're looking at natural science departments, biology departments, even environmental science departments, just casting a wide STEM net and go using faculty email databases. And then over time, as we've developed closer connections with some schools, or faculty members, or students graduate our program and talk to other faculty about it, we've kind of added to that list folks that we know are sending out that flyer for us. We typically get about 100 applications when we send out a call. So the flyers are getting places. In terms of the stipend, so how we were funded for the first 3 years, we actually were not able to pay students directly. And so that is a big part of our reason why we were doing the monthly, like once a month meeting. So very low stakes, low time commitment, trying to keep ourselves ensuring that, we're not putting too much of a time commitment on the students when we can't pay them for their time. But we are on the search for grant funding that will allow us to pay students stipends for when they come away with us.
yeah, because those are some of the barriers for the students to commute and all that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which is a big part of why we're excited about our hybrid model.
Do you see that question from Wendy?
Yes, I'm just reading Wendy's question. Please speak to the inclusion in the 2YC demographics, so specific strategies to include persons with disabilities, invisible or visible, into STEM perhaps. If not, please consider in the future. Yes, Wendy, I definitely appreciate this comment. And so like I was talking about our recruitment strategy for developing those long lists of faculty or departments, we have also expanded into also looking at student groups and also specialty counselors for our recruitment. So we've done things like, for example, OSTEM, so out in STEM, and also we've talked to like foster or former foster youth liaison counselors. So we're trying to begin to do more of a targeted effort to reach different groups. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the suggestion about the USDA opportunities. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Amanda? Because we have a couple of discussion questions, but we wanted to make sure there was plenty of time for Q&A first. Okay, well, we're going to throw a discussion question into the chat, but if y'all come up with other Q&A questions for Amanda, we'll just jump right in with those in the chat. And I'm going to also put really quick, because I don't think I did it earlier. I'm just going to put a link in the chat to the program that Amanda has been talking about. So it's easy to access more information about that. So one of our interests in this webinar, and first I want to really give a big thank you to John and others at NAGT, CERC and NAGT, who organized this webinar. We really appreciate it. We were excited to connect with community college faculty as we were thinking about potential proposals and other ways to support this really important conversation around giving community college students field experiences, all kinds of field experiences, from the low intensity to the big research internship kind of thing. And one of the things that we're interested in doing is writing some proposals, and are interested to find out more from community college faculty what our needs and interests. I'm not a community college faculty, so we're excited to hear your thoughts and opinions, and later we'll talk to you about a way to potentially find out more about working with us in the future if you're interested. I'm going to throw in our first question. And Nancy, please fill in if I'm missing something.
I think you got it all.
Okay. So this is something we'll hope people, you can either write answers in the chat, you can ask a clarifying question, or for people to turn on the microphones and answer as well. And this could be about, what are future needs for support? What kind of things do community college students maybe need that's distinctive and specific, or speak for yourself as a community college faculty in answering this question? I'm going to give everyone a minute to think. Good question, Anjali. I think you can either type in your response, or you're also glad. We're glad to hear you turn off your mic and say it out loud too. Either way. Oh, excellent. Thank you. So I'm seeing some cost and funding, being away from family work. The credits issue. Incentives, that's something someone else brought up. They need to have a long-term commitment to do the conferences and monthly meetings, because they have to take time off from their jobs. Patrick talks about ownership. I'm working in implementing cures, and an issue for ownership is being a small part of a bigger project that they don't get to see completed.
This is an unrelated thought, but sometimes these kind of creative projects are run by single faculty, and oftentimes at institutions, you have to have a buy-in from the entire department to run these kind of programs. So there could be other barriers in terms of administrative or departmental point of view. So when Amanda was mentioning reaching the faculty, I would recommend reaching out to the department deans or the chairs so that they can bring it to the department meeting and have a buy-in at that level. Because if the admin is not on board, then
All right, thank you for, I'm seeing some great ideas, NSF geopaths as a possibility for funding. I'm going to put in another question. Amanda and Nancy, I'm just going to do the next one. Let's see, Wendy says, do you have any authentic collaborations with the faculty? Wait, maybe that's a question for Amanda. Let me see. Do you have any authentic? Oh, Amanda, maybe that is a question for you, I think.
Yeah, no, I feel like that is a question for me. And the answer is no, but forming. And that's a big part of the goal why I ended up talking with Kari and Nancy, and we're asking that question of what do community college faculty need? How can we be a partner and be helpful in that space? I have built relationships with deans and several community college faculty who I speak with on a more regular basis and who are helping recruit students and helping also the development of my programming. But in terms of that kind of authentic collaboration of a program, that's not there yet. That is the missing piece. And I think that's a big portion of purpose of what we're setting out to do now is ask these kinds of questions, find these kinds of relationships, figure out what barriers are we not seeing that we're putting up. And so I think that that's really on the right track.
May I respond to what Amanda said? I think that's great. And in fact, maybe part of what you might want to do is, whether it's by Zoom or in person, have roundtable meetings with those specific regional faculty, because some of the things they might voice, like some of my colleagues that are online with us today, is that teaching is paramount at the community colleges, and often we cannot buy out courses similar to what you might do at other non-community college models. However, you could fund stipend and extension if you can somehow have the faculty members at their institutions, if the institutions are able to do this through, if they have a grants office, where they're actually co-submitting as a lead PI from their institution, depending upon who the agency is. But many times there are underdeveloped grants offices or non-existent. So it might be like a subaward, but something that could leverage how does this work into the direct curriculum that they do with the courses that they have on their books. And if you can nest that in, not only because topically it's extremely relevant, as we know, we're on this session, but it also can be used as a leverage point with our local administrators at the institutions, that this is building toward the measurables, the metrics that we use for course learning objectives and such. And that's the language I know, at least at the institutions that I've been part of during it's very important. And to speak to the diversity of the students, that they can bring that. You can use it as recruiting, first of all, through all the embedded in these intro classes, but also to help sustain that once that they've gone through your program, the students they come back and they become some type of ambassadors locally of students that have similar backgrounds. And that's immense, I'm finding, with something that I'm doing with a regional university. So I really appreciate you guys doing this and sharing what you're learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I think you gave a perfect segue into maybe our last question that we'll pose to the group, and then we'll just have a minute of wrap up, and just gonna copy it and paste it in because I know myself, I need to see the question. And this is just to kind of brainstorm and share some ideas amongst ourselves about what are some of the solutions or approaches that you've either tried or have heard of for engaging community college students in field research. And I put field research, I think we're really interested in thinking about the different ways we can engage, community college students. And I think Wendy brought up an important one about leveraging it into courses, because that's going to be probably more achievable. for a lot of the faculty and the students maybe to participate in. So that was kind of like a great launch into maybe putting either ideas in the chat or speak up about some solutions, big or small, that you have found for engaging community college students in either field research or just field learning experiences in general, field trips, all the way to more intensive. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in real quick to answer
Oh, yeah.
Gina's question. So our program, I think you're referring to like how are they in our program, but also full-time. And so the reason why we're having it, why the 9-month program is in design that way is because we're doing, so those monthly meetings are about 4 hours on the first Saturday of every month. They're spread out so that they can be low stakes, and that if the student can't make it, they have an entire month to meet up with their mentor for an hour or two to keep their project going. So it's done very small, little time commitments throughout the month in order to try and be the least disruptive as possible to their schedule. And then in the models where the students are doing field work in their own communities, they can do that spread out over several months on their own time in the summer, or we have those being able to go to remote location for a week or so.
One of the ideas is that, you know, oftentimes the students at two-year colleges have to, they acquire work experience through cooperative work experience credits. So those are paid and unpaid internship options here in the state of California. And reaching out to the career centers and informing them about these opportunities will help increase the recruitment. But again, it goes back to stipends. If it is offered as an internship, which exposes them to research experiences in the field settings, then they might have an inclination of taking it up as a credit. A maximum of 8 units of CWE can be, a student can enroll for 8 units of CWE per semester for a max, and the lowest as 1. So when it is tied up with workforce development and acquiring skills for a specific job that they can find out in the real world, then they will be more excited to take up these opportunities. That's just a side note, but at the core of it is offering them, you know, hands-on experience, experiential learning opportunities.
I think that, thank you. I think that there is another question in the chat, Amanda, from Margaret, and then we'll probably wrap up. You see that?
Yes, I'm just reading it. Margaret, is it possible for you to clarify maybe what you mean or what my comment was? I'm sorry, I don't.
Earlier, you commented that you had, I don't know, social media ways or different things you were doing with students to encourage them to become part of a group or community.
Oh, yeah.
Say, we've done some events on campus, but if you don't have time for all these things, what else can we be doing to bring them into this scientific community to get them to apply for these summer either workforce development, summer research positions, etc.? How do we encourage them?
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So what my comment there was when we were doing the 100% remote cohort, so the students were only really seeing each other on Zoom once a month, and oftentimes working in breakout rooms with their research teams, so not really forming that community together online. We had a Slack page and a Facebook page, but within our Slack channel, we had different channels. So we had, for example, like hashtag fieldwork, and that's where they would post pictures of themselves doing their fieldwork in their community. Or we had hashtag reflections. So like on Fridays, we'd send out reflection questions like, you know, what was it like when you heard our guest speaker talk about X or Y? And we were basically giving them spaces. There was a hang channel where there were no mentors allowed, and we were basically giving them space to informally communicate with one another without having to exchange personal information. So in Slack, you can direct message people, you can have emojis and reactions and photos. And it was actually a really lively community that, even though they all graduated in December of 2021, I still get Slack notification that folks are still in that channel talking.
Looks like there's one last comment from Gina reflecting about that most students at their community college participate in internships over the summer, but that the remote options might work for the other times of the year. So I think I'm gonna just wrap up really quick with, I'm gonna share a slide and put a few things in the chat about kind of ways to continue this conversation. I think, John, you're going to send a survey out at some point. That's one of the things I was going to mention. And of course, I'm going to promote that. Can people see my, okay, it's not a very exciting slide, but it's just one slide. Can you see that, Amanda? Okay, perfect. If you're interested in this kind of conversations, specifically community college getting community college students engaged in fieldwork, Amanda is leading the UFERN Community College Interest Group, and I think you can email her, right, to sign up for that. Do you mind putting your email in the chat, Amanda? If you want to join the UFERN listserv, we send a lot of stuff out also over NAGT Field and get on the NAGT newsletter as well. It's a very multidisciplinary community, both kind of biology and geoscience focused. We're super excited to have CERC and NAGT as partners, and then share feedback and express interest in learning more about, you know, proposals that we're working on in the future. We're looking for community college faculty as partners. There will be an opportunity to do that on the survey that John is going to send you. So, and then I just want to give a big thank you to Amanda in particular. Yay, Amanda, thank you very much. Your work you're doing is really amazing and very interesting to learn about. And then thanks to CERC and NAGT for helping facilitate this webinar, and National Science Foundation as well. So that is kind of our wrap up. If there's any last thoughts, anyone else?
I will do some wrap up.
Okay, perfect.
To answer Lisa's question, it looks like Amanda's already getting there too. All of the resources from today's webinar will be posted on the webinar page. The slides, the paper that was mentioned earlier, and once that's processed, the recording of today's webinar will also be posted, and you can please do share that with your friends and colleagues. I will also put a few things into the chat here. Just a reminder that the webinar series homepage is where you can see what upcoming webinars are happening and sign up for the listserv to get email about upcoming events. We do have an evaluation form that we ask if you would take a few minutes and give us some feedback. There is information from the presenters about, you know, how to stay involved with the effort, and looking forward to potential proposals in the future on that evaluation. So you can sign up, you can provide your information if you want to be kept in the loop about that sort of thing. And we would love to see you again at future webinars. The next one is by the DEI Committee of NAGT, which will be talking about NAGT award programs and the processes for application and getting both yourselves and your students involved in those awards programs. So please do take a look at that. That's coming up on January 25th, I believe. But check a look at the webinar series page and you can find out all the information going forward. So with that, unless there are any other questions or comments, I think we'll be done for the day, and thank you all for spending some time with us this afternoon.